The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
And welcome to Triversity Talk. I am your host tonight, Wendy Stewart. And what is very interesting, you're probably saying to yourself, where's the co-host? Because I usually do have a co-host. Well, you know what? Every now and then, I just like to shake it up a little bit and make it a little bit different. So I am here by my lonesome. So please support me. Show me some love tonight. So I hope everybody had a really great week. And it's good to see everybody again. I had an absolutely amazing experience I want to share with everybody. I met so many people that are involved in LGBTQ causes on Sunday. And the reason that happened is we have a boat that we do every year. It's called the CT, and they call it the Gay Party Boat. But I think what was so interesting to me is I've been going on this boat literally probably for the last 20 years. But so many of the people that I came up with are now involved in different causes and organizations helping the LGBTQ plus community. And they're out there and they're greeting every single one of those challenges with open arms. And I got to tell you, it was so much fun just to go on a boat and dance again, right? We all love doing that. A shout out here. I gave a birthday celebration on the boat to the infamous Rollerina. Many of you remember Rollerina, the fairy godmother from Studio 54. Rollerina may not be rolling in the same way that she used to roll, but she sure can dance. And it was wonderful to honor her. She too has been a real activist in our community. And a shout out here to Apollonia Cruz as well, who runs Bronx Pride. She was on board. And last but not least, the one and only Felipe Rose from the Village People, which he has a new single out. It's called Dance Again. And of course, he ended up singing a bunch of different songs on the boat. So a good time was had by all. So you can tell I am on my soapbox tonight talking about people that get out there, that are the doers, that put their money where their mouth is, that say, you know, I want to help. I want to do this. I want to do that. And they're the ones that go ahead and do it. Well, tonight I have a really exceptional woman coming on the show. I met her and she has the exact same name as my maiden name. It's a little confusing when we talk to each other. As a matter of fact, when she goes to look for my email, she ends up finding herself because we have the same last name. This is the one and only Wendy Kaplan, and she is the director of Trinity Place Shelter. Their mission is to help homeless LGBTQ plus teens transition out of homeless shelters and give them support, create a home-like atmosphere and a safe space. So I'd like to welcome Wendy Kaplan.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much, Wendy Kaplan.
This is going to be so funny. This is funny. Every time I see guest starring Wendy Kaplan, it completely confuses me because, you know, for people that don't know, my theatrical or my name that's always been my professional name, right, is Wendy Stewart. My married name is Wendy Kaplan. Then I meet another Wendy Kaplan, and it's just, and you don't spell it with a C either. It's with a K.
Yeah, no, it's an honor to share my name with you, to have a common name. So,
well, I would like to give a little backstory to anybody that's listening, how Wendy and I met. I am a member of an amazing philanthropic organization, the Imperial Court of New York. We're known for giving incredible evenings like Night of 1,000 Gowns, and we do wonderful shows where people perform. We have all kinds of awards and things that we do, but more than that, we raise money. We raise a lot of money, and we raise money for a lot of different organizations. So that is how I had the pleasure of meeting this Wendy Kaplan. You got an award that night.
I did get an award that night. Yes.
Well, tell us what the award was for.
The award, it was, I am now a dame of the court.
You're a dame.
I am a dame of the court. Yes. A tremendous honor. In the Imperial Court of New York have been just beloved friends of Trinity Place Shelter for countless years. Their support, their fundraising, and they have helped to uplift us in countless ways over the years. So we're very grateful for that relationship.
Well, and they're grateful for their relationship with you and all the organizations that, that they work with. And as you know, it's all about all of us working together to, help change things in the world. And when I went on the Trinity Place website, I think what was the most daunting to me was 40% of homeless youth are LGBTQ plus youth. Wow.
Yes.
That's a huge number.
It's an astonishing number. It's a devastating number.
Devastating number.
And, when you consider like the entire unaccompanied youth who are homeless, think of it as a pie chart, right? Like as a pie. And that almost over 40%, right? When you consider less than 10% of the population identifies as LGBTQ, it's deeply disproportional, right?
Right. Well, that is very well put, deeply disproportional. It was interesting to me when I was reading, the history of Trinity Place, which I want you to talk about how it came about, because that alone was impressive. But that in so many cases, it's got to do with homes and their religious beliefs that are casting out their own children, which is really unbelievable.
Sadly, we do see a lot of that here at Trinity Place. Folks coming from very religious households, very disapproving. Yeah. Right. And rejecting their children because of this. So, yeah, the reason why that statistic is so devastatingly disproportionate is because LGBTQI plus youth are rejected from their families. So, oftentimes there may also be compounding issues of poverty and abuse or other things going on in the home. But it's rejection from their families of origin that really is the number one cause of that outstanding statistic. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And this is all across the country.
Yes, it is. Yes,
so
it is.
Your average group age is 18 to 24?
18 to 24, yes. And that's really exceptional, Wendy, because a lot of youth shelters only take folks up to 21. So a lot of people thus are asked to leave the shelter before they're 20, the day before they turn 21. Right?
Okay. That's like, for the most part, all right. And by the way, I read what Trinity Place does with their support systems. Amazing. But let's just take a regular shelter. All right. Mm-hmm. A kid that may even be in there with their family, right?
Right.
They're not being really prepped for anything. They go to school, I guess, right?
Right.
How can you cut a kid free at that age certainly in this society with no resources?
Right.
No way to earn a living?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it's really, so when you're talking about the young people who come to Trinity Place, we have structured our program in such a way to really disrupt the cycle of homelessness. It's been tailored strategically over the years to do just that. And there's a lot of very unique features about Trinity Place that allow us to do that. So one is that we do take young people over the age of 21, right? So these young people aren't just now back out on the streets.
Right.
Two is the amount of time that residents can stay at Trinity Place. So most youth shelters, folks can only stay for 30 to 90 days. So that really means that these young people are just cycling off and on the street.
Right.
Right. So there's no disruption to that cycle. So at Trinity Place, folks can stay up to 18 months. So
that is, wow.
It's a meaningful amount of time to put a lot of supports in place, to put housing applications in place, to get a job, go back to school, whatever is the individual goals for that young person. We help them work towards their individual goals, all the while they're saving for housing, working towards housing, whether that's through supportive housing or housing vouchers, or just saving enough money if they price themselves out of supportive housing and housing vouchers to then exit Trinity Place successfully.
Right.
And that's creating stability in people's lives hereafter.
It's something that I think a lot of people don't think about. In New York, we talk about, and you hear it all the time, as I do, the homeless, quote unquote, the homeless situation, right?
Yeah.
And as we know, I do want to talk to you about how the pandemic affected Trinity Place.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many people that ended up on the streets during the pandemic and ended up sick on the streets during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But you see, I mean, I've seen, you know, teenagers that have left wherever they were before. They're living on the streets. Now there's really no support. I don't even know what's going on out there. You would probably know better than I. But ironically enough, you were coming on the show tonight, and I was working in the fashion center, the garment center today. And I was leaving a client, and I passed this couple on the stoop. They couldn't have been any older than 18. And the two of them were shooting up. And, you know, I looked at them, right? And they were falling into each other. And I thought to myself, those are somebody's kids. Somebody had those children. I mean, and here's this situation, and they're on the street, sitting on a stoop, like just discards of society.
Yeah. Yeah. Just stripped of humanity. And that is really how much of our culture thinks of homeless people, right? We have so many stereotypes and so many ideas of what homeless people are. And there certainly aren't the supports in place to deal with young people who are facing so much trauma in the home or rejection from their families just for simply who they are. So that's the results, you know.
They end up on the streets. I mean,
yeah.
When I thought of those two kids, and I think of the amazing work you do, there should be like every state should have, like in counties, following a formula like what you have. I was so impressed by everything I read. They should have a structure like yours.
It's a very unique blueprint, Wendy. It's we were started. I can talk about some of the founding of Trinity Place. So we were started by activists.
Right.
So Trinity Place. It was the middle of the winter. I believe it was 2004, 2006. I hope I'm getting this right.
Aughts. We call that the early aughts.
Early aughts.
Early aughts.
No. I'm late enough that I can't be expected to remember the numbers. It was a particularly cold winter. And so there was a call out from the city for people to have like structures that had a lot of space in the night. So a lot of churches, synagogues, you think of buildings and spaces that are empty at night but have like large halls. So there was a call out from the city for support. And so Trinity Lutheran Church of Manhattan, which is where Trinity Place Shelter is housed, answered that call. And from there, it was at the time the intern to the pastor, Chris Volgman, who said, we can do this and we should do this.
And we should do this. So there is, okay, that human being had a moral responsibility.
Yes. And so they piloted the program, basically. It was a passion project and it was so successful. And the church decided this is something we should do. It was the belief of the pastor of the church, who is still the founding executive director of Trinity Place Shelter, Pastor Heidi Newmark, who believed that the church, as you noted, has just propagated so much hate. And so that she felt it was incumbent upon the church to be part of the healing. So those are some of the tenets on which Trinity Place Shelters was founded. We're non-denominational. We're our own separate 501c3 who rent space from the church. But we are housed still in the basement of Trinity Lutheran Church of Manhattan. And it was initially the work of many dedicated activists who brought Trinity Place Shelter to life. It's evolved over the years to what it is today. Yeah.
You've all done such an amazing job. It's interesting because I've had on the show pastors from Episcopal churches, and I think someone else from a Lutheran church. And those actual churches, by the way, are getting more involved in doing this. And it's great. Okay. Because, right, it's great. It's important, and they're attracting the youth. All right. They're attracting people, even in our own LGBTQ plus community, friends of mine who are now very much involved with the Episcopal Church because of what it does. And I just think it's such a great idea and very much needed right now in our society. We can't have polarization, the fire and brimstone attitude from a whole other time. As human beings, we really have to look at the situation and see what's happening, to our kids in the LGBTQ plus community. We have to.
And, it's interesting, even though we do have a separation of church and shelter, as I say, but some young people come to this space and it's actually very meaningful to them that it's in a church, because they grew up with religion. They feel themselves very connected spiritually. So for a lot of people, in some ways coming from religious trauma, this can be its own kind of healing. We've even had a couple of people just connect on their own, decide to do this with the pastor, want to be baptized. Some of our trans clients want to be baptized with their true name and their true identity.
That's amazing. Right.
Yeah. So that's something that the church here has done. Pastor Heidi Newmark has done.
And that is something I would have never even thought about, right? That there is comfort, in religion. There is comfort in spirituality.
Yes. For so many people, it's such an enormous source of strength, just in the same way that for so many people, it's been a source of shame, used to shame and punish and fear, right? And to judge. But the other side of that coin is that it's a source of power and strength, and for people to be able to reclaim that. So that's been a beautiful story for some people who have that connection, who've lived here.
Yeah. I'm sure maybe that doesn't always work for everybody, right? Because everyone's different. But on a broader scale, from everything that I know, you provide a home atmosphere. And, unless you've lived on the streets, it's something someone like me will read about, or I have actually known people that have. But what a harsh, awful existence. And then to have a place that they can call home for 18 months, that's a, a big chunk out of a young person's life to get their act together.
Yeah. It's a short amount of time, and then relatively it's enough time to put all these supports in place,
right.
For most folks. And we work towards that. Also very unique about Trinity is that we're staffed almost exclusively by social workers, staff with master's degrees. So they have the professional skill set and the training, the trauma-informed care, right? To be able to work with folks and be part of the healing, to make this space a nourishing place, a healing space. So that's part of the story too. And that is how we create community and family and sort of do a lot of reparenting in some ways,
Well, I would think even more than some way, because I'm sure young people that come to you, a lot of them have quote unquote been through the ringer, literally, and they need what would be like you create a home-like atmosphere. There has to also be like a parent-like atmosphere, devoid of judgment.
Yeah, we become parentified. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
The support of a positive parent would have done.
And redoing it. So, doing it differently. There's not the yelling. Instead, we're celebrating people for who they are, coming to them with respect and valuing them, Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to start to undo that, and for people to get that from other adults, which they may not have experienced that before.
So how do you find your clients?
So folks are referred to Trinity Place through all the other partnering organizations in the city. So we work very closely with other youth serving organizations, other LGBTQ youth serving organizations. And so they refer to us. We actually don't take self-referrals. Sadly, I get so many calls and emails.
You do? Wow.
Yeah. From young people, honestly, across the country, saying I'm not safe here at home. I want to come to New York. Like, people are coming to New York like a queer Mecca, right? Trying to find something like safer and kinder. And then they realize when they get here, actually, yeah, like this is a big city. Living in a regular general population shelter is very unsafe.
Very unsafe. Really
LGBTQ folks. Yeah. I can't tell you countless stories people have told me of being assaulted, sexually assaulted, bullied, etc. So it is so critical that we have these queer spaces and shelters for LGBTQI plus folks.
Absolutely. Are you able, like, when you get a letter or a call from somebody, I mean, what a position it puts you in, because I know you want to help, right?
Yeah, right.
Are you able to at least give them maybe referrals to?
We do.
You do.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
But the reality is, Wendy, is there just aren't enough beds for anyone. There aren't enough beds, and there certainly aren't enough safe beds, right? The policy is very behind what the reality and what the need is.
The reality is certainly in New York, they're putting up these expensive towers all over. So
yeah,
that's
affordable housing
with homeless or trying to help people or any of those things. The minute there's any, and originally, and you probably remember this, when they started this development, and a lot of it started, I think, under Mayor Bloomberg, and it's certainly in the last 5 years, it's ridiculous how it's blossomed. I mean, between buildings, there used to be these things, pocket parks. You remember those?
Yes.
Little neighborhood parks that people, now if they have that sliver and they can put in apartments that start at $3 million, that's
exactly.
in there. But initially, part of the tax break was supposed to be, and I'm sure you heard this, that they were supposed to not only build affordable housing, but other kinds of housing. What happened to that plan?
There just aren't enough. There have been some inroads made in terms of there's been a lot of supportive housing put in place under the Biden administration. Now there's actually a new initiative with emergency housing vouchers. The problem is along the way, there's so much discrimination. Landlords, brokers, right, don't want to rent to folks. There's like the system is broken.
Well,
yeah. So you might have the voucher, but actually connecting to that housing, there's no mechanism in place for that. And right. And
how you're telling me they've come up with these vouchers under the Biden administration, but it's like having a worthless coupon, an expired coupon, because
it's going to expire, right? Unless you find housing, and
you can't. And landlords don't want to rent you.
When you give it to young people and just say, "Here, go for it," who has the wherewithal and knows how to navigate those systems? I mean, some of the most savvy adults, like it is the most overwhelming, complicated process, right? And so you're talking about young people, you're often talking about people of color, you're talking about, so it is just a very flawed system. So that's actually a newer initiative we started here is we just got a housing navigator to help folks who have vouchers to try and we're partnering with other organizations who help folks get the vouchers to try and help them navigate and work with brokers, send out emails, going to visit apartments, what's the language you use to talk about it, keeping up with all that needs to be kept up. So that's a new initiative that we are just getting off the ground, actually.
Housing Navigator. That's incredible. And as we're talking, I'm seeing what was a great big gap, right? You have to have somebody that
I mean, we need, 5 times, 10 times as many people as we have, but we're going to work with what we've got for now. And yeah, there's a lot of work to do. How
do you have such, to do what you do, you have to have a positive attitude.
Yes.
But how do you keep that going with what you see?
Okay, Wendy, this is a really great question because it's something I think about because I do have to be very mindful of my energy because I'm also working directly with residents, doing that clinical work and one-on-one work and group work, and I'm also working at a director's level and working with funders and donors, program development, etc. So I am so, because of that work, I am so beautifully positioned to get to bear witness to these beautiful spirits, these beautiful folks that live at Trinity Place Shelter that I get to know. It's a gift to get to know them, right? It's an honor. And I also get to bear witness and be the recipient of people's donors giving spirits, and I meet so many incredibly wonderful and generous people out there in our community who want to give and want to connect and want to partner with us and be part of this meaningful work, and it is that I am so truly filled by all these beautiful folks I get to meet. So that's sort of the quick answer. But
that's not a quick answer. That is well thought out. And you know what? I figured that would be your answer because you actually emanate that fulfillment. Okay. The world has gone inside out and upside down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But look at what you're doing. Okay. Look at how you are changing, affecting people's lives every day when you get up and you go and do what it is that you do. I mean, and no matter where you end up after this, you can actually look back and say, I remember that person. I remember a conversation I had with that person. I remember how I helped that person. But you know
Yeah.
what? The ability to do that, I think what's so interesting to me, obviously, I'm on the same side of the fence that you're on. And I just assume like other people can see that and they'll want to jump in and make a difference. My whole reason for wanting to become part of the Imperial Court, I always had these delusions of grandeur that I was going to be Angelina Jolie, right? I've been modeling and acting since I'm 20, and I never, of course, even hit close to that level. But I always imagined I would look at people that could do incredible philanthropy. And I thought, oh, that's what I'm going to do. And that didn't happen the way I thought. However, by becoming part of the Imperial Court, performing with them, selling raffles or whatever, in my own little way, I can make a difference. I can meet people like you that no matter how superficial the people I've met, maybe in my work or whatever, were, I meet someone like you that is just so filled with meaning and is really making a difference. It's totally and completely uplifting. And you must feel that way all the time.
I have the privilege of just working from this place of abundance. Like that's
Right.
how I feel. I feel like I really do. It's not only this sense of like meaningful work, but it's meaningful. Like I learn so much. I learn so much. In some ways, I get to like sit back and just be a connector.
Right.
Sit back and be a recipient of what people are offering and allow them a platform and a vehicle to use their gifts,
Right.
and that I would say is the same story for both the young people I work with, but also for the donors and funders and beautiful folks in the community who connect with Trinity Place are so gifted
Yeah.
and are so much fun. It's fantastic, and I get to meet such a variety of people. So for me, I learn and grow. I learn and grow every day, and I'm humbled by it.
And
And
you are humbled by it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I am. Yeah, and it takes all of us. So I think that's the important thing to remember too. It's really about bringing people together and building community and learning how to mine people's gifts and talents.
But also the desire to want to do that.
Mm,
Okay. I remember when I was in college, friends of mine that wanted to go on for careers in social work. All right. And it was a different time, but I remember hearing, oh my God, you don't want to be a social worker. It's a headache.
yeah,
It's this, it's that. You
yeah,
have to have heard some of that. So what
yeah.
made you like pursue this when you were in college? What made you go for this degree?
I got this degree a little later in life. I first started out in more public health
Oh,
work.
okay.
I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I was doing a lot of work in actually needle exchanges and methadone clinics and
Harm
working,
reduction.
yeah, harm reduction and substance use, working in a lot of like HIV prevention work, um, safer sex, etc. So, and I came to this, it's sort of like in some ways a life of service. Some of your talking to yous made me reflect a little. And I grew up going to synagogue and learning about the Nazis. I grew up in a Jewish home, learning about the Nazis. I also grew up in the 70s and 80s, when apartheid in South Africa existed, right? So I grew up with a very particular orientation to oppression, to injustice, that really has informed many of the choices I've made in my life. And so I believe for me, a life in service, trying to use my privilege and my gifts to do better.
You could do better.
To
And
do
you
better.
could help people.
So, yeah.
And help
So,
suffering.
Yeah.
How
So
cool.
my work started off in public health, and then I moved to social work. I was very lucky to be part of the genesis of what's now called the Staten Island Pride Center.
Okay.
And yeah, and lived in Brooklyn, worked on Staten Island.
Keep it the boroughs. Let's just keep it real. I'm from the Bronx originally. Keep
Fantastic.
it real in the boroughs.
We need all 5 represented, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and that it was that work that led me to get a social work degree. I was running groups, running the youth programs there. I was just in love with it. And I thought, I need the degree. I've hit the ceiling here. So I need the degree so I can go further. Yeah. And that's when I went back to school.
It is interesting to me that you're, I'm half Jewish, and not the right half, by the way. But my mother, who was Protestant, I was raised with stories about the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
And, my mother was very adamant right here in New York when in Yorkville, the area that I'm in. She remembers them yelling Heil Hitler in the street. I grew up with those stories with my mother, socks for the war. And one of the things my mom telling me, they could have stopped the extermination of the Jews if they had only blown up the tracks. Even to this day, think about that, right? And nobody blew up the tracks. I too am an activist, and that stayed in my head, that nobody blew up the tracks. So it is what we are exposed to in the families that we come from. Your awareness too of apartheid, I certainly remember it, but I did not experience that as deeply as my mother saying they should have blown up the tracks and they could have stopped. And some of us, it definitely affects a lot more than others. I went through the whole AIDS era, worked with the AIDS organization, taking care of the pets of anyone that had HIV or AIDS. It completely turned me into who I am now, because, again, that was another example of why didn't they blow up the tracks? Why didn't they, stop AZT that killed so many people? Yeah. Why didn't they make those cocktails, which I call the Dallas Buyer Club drugs, those were available only if you knew the people that were concocting them. And we did. And some of the clients were able to get those. And they're still here. So I think for us, it's that frustration of not being able to change something that is so intrinsically wrong that you feel so deep inside of you. So it's incredible now that you can go out there and 18 months of somebody at Trinity Place that you're going to get to know, all right, and affect the rest of their life. That sure is powerful.
Yeah, it's I'm very lucky and grateful to be able to be in this work, and to be connected to a space like Trinity Place that is so important. It is so important, impacting.
You have kids that, they leave after 18 months, they go out there in the world, and then they come back and you get to see like all the great, that to me worth everything.
I know. I feel very, very lucky. And for those whom I'm still connected with. Yes.
Right. Do you find that a lot of them pay it forward?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's an interesting question. And I know there's a lot of folks who still want to give back to Trinity, which is very moving and touching,
what it's
Yeah. Yeah. I was just talking to a young person a couple days ago, and asking them if they would, help Trinity Place with some recruitment for, we're starting some, I call it expanded programming on Wednesdays. So we're going to be able to scale our reach and impact. So not this Wednesday programming will be open during the day, not just to Trinity Place residents, but to other young queer folks impacted by homelessness. So we'll have a work readiness group available to folks, wellness programming, where we'll work on developing just more coping skills for anxiety and depression, mindfulness techniques, body work, breath work. We'll have support groups, some art therapy, etc. So I am so excited for this. And I asked this young person, I was like, can you just help us do some outreach and recruitment? We're trying to find other young people and we'll pay you. And they're like, you don't need to pay me. I want more people to be connected to Trinity Place. And this is such as I was like, oh my God, so it's those moments where, yeah, it's very touching.
So this is a great program too that you're doing. And
it's really exciting. We're just in the nascent stages. We haven't launched yet, and we're in the recruitment phase. Yes. We've gotten a little waylaid along the way to starting, but I couldn't be more excited.
What made you decide to put in, this is an outreach program, and I'm assuming into the community or even beyond your immediate community?
Yes. This was born out of really the pandemic in some ways. Well, so the pandemic, we stayed open. Normally, Trinity Place Shelter is open from the early evening and folks exit the next morning. And so during the pandemic, and it's really just a funding issue, is our hours of operation. The space that we're situated in is also like a veritable community center for so many different groups and progressive groups and programming, et cetera. So it's a shared space. So during the pandemic, however, we had to start running 24/7. So we nearly doubled our operations, right? And all the youth drop-in spaces, everything as we know shut down. So we hired more staff. We were open 24/7, and we were providing so much more programming and case management than we had ever provided before. And this really allowed us to re-envision what's possible in the space. And we've always wanted to sort of scale our impact and reach. And it's just been a question of how exactly. We can't have more beds just because there's a legal limit to the space. But what we could do is start to do the state programming. So yeah. So we're very thankful.
Right. That came out of the pandemic. My God.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're very thankful to have gotten a little bit of funding from Trinity Wall Street to pilot this program.
The Trinity, well, that's a historical church down there.
Yes.
How, my gosh, right? Talk about.
I'm giving them props and uplifting because we're so thankful. Yeah.
Oh, and absolutely wonderful. Really wonderful.
They do incredible. They fund a lot of incredible, very progressive work. Yeah. Really impressive, really important work. So we're so thankful to partner with them in this.
So, going forward, right? What do you want to see for yourself as you grow as a person?
Oh gosh, Wendy.
You talked to me. You met me at a airport. No, because even myself, I always think, what I want. I have to tell you that the pandemic threw me for a loop. It's interesting because you sound like you were busier than ever.
Busier than ever. There was no closet cleaning or bread making over here.
There was no make bread. Oh, so you like to make bread? God bless you, girl. I love.
No, I don't have time. I have no idea.
She got no bread to be baking that bread, but for me, because I'm such a self-starter, I had to completely invent. For you, it sounds like you had to go into overdrive.
I did go into overdrive. So it's interesting. I feel like so many people really were able to sort of reimagine their lives, and now are in this space where they are doing the work. They quit their jobs and are doing something more meaningful to them. And the pandemic was so beautiful in that regard for so many people. For me, it was, I just because of where I work, I was on overdrive and wasn't able to have that sort of thoughtful place. But I am so grateful that we were able to stay open for the young people and provide this refuge, refuge in a school.
Refuge when the amount of people that were on the streets. I mean, everything fell apart in New York. We watched it happen. We also watched all of our essential workers start to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was incredible, especially in healthcare, how they rose to the occasion.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But of course you had, the people that could left, I stayed just because I came up here in New York, and this is going to sound strange, but I felt like I would be a traitor.
Yeah.
I
get that.
Here all during 9/11 at a loft downtown. I collected clothes from Burlington Coat Factory to bring to the firemen and the police department. Because as a New Yorker, I know you just want to spring into action. You want to
have that sense.
Right, you have that sense.
And that's another example of being at Trinity Place. I can't tell you, I was the recipient of so many giving hearts during that time. People wanted to do grocery shopping for us. People brought us arts and crafts to do. People cooked for us. So many generous souls out there just connected and thought of us during this time of crisis to be thinking of others. So it's very special.
Thinking of others. So in terms of what people can do for Trinity Place, say on the volunteer level, as we get towards the end of our show, tell me what Trinity Place is looking for.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we're looking, you got it. We're looking for it. It's just, there's so many ways to hop in. And I will say, first and foremost, like any financial support, of course, couldn't be more meaningful. We are that small that every dollar means something and goes back into programming, impacts the young people who live here. Nothing gets lost in fancy mailings or multiple departments. We don't have departments. We have a handful of staff. So those donations are actually deeply meaningful and directly impact everybody here. And in terms of if folks want to get involved, people can make dinners and do dinner donations for us, which is wonderful and so well received. People can do donation drives or connect with their employers and figure out ways in which employees can support, whether it's by doing drives or I'm happy to hop on a call with anyone and start to brainstorm ways to get engaged. If folks want to come and volunteer, we always welcome many hands to help us with cleaning and donation organization. So I encourage folks to reach out, and I would love to have a conversation about how people can use their gifts to support Trinity Place.
Yeah, because I think when people are aware of what's going on and the incredible work that you do, they're going to want to go out there and, offer their help. Absolutely. Well, this has just been so terrific. I want to just thank you for everything that you are that you're doing.
Thank you.
You're a gift to LGBTQ plus youth, but also a gift to society. And we certainly, at this point, we need more people that are going to become aware. And to me, New York has fallen apart. I really feel that way. But
Yeah.
I am like you. I'm the optimist. My glass will always be half full.
Oh, beautiful.
Right, because that's who I am. And I wanted to have you on. I wanted to get out there the beautiful work that they're doing at Trinity Place, but also to let people know that Trinity Place, it's just a small speck in the cosmos of the United States of America, where the LGBTQ plus youth are, many of them are suffering. And certainly, and under the last administration, so many things had happened that we're not supportive. All right. I hope they can get this housing voucher situation just together in general. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
At Trinity Place, you all hire, you have somebody that's going to be the go-between, the navigator. But you made me think, Wendy, how many places need a navigator?
Yeah.
You can't expect
the need is too great. We need more. Right. Wendy, I want to thank you for providing this platform, not just for me, but for our queer community, and giving light and voice to you and your beautiful world, and to so many folks. So thank you. Yeah, the work you do. I mean, it's all of us together in it, right? And
Wendy, I always think, oh my God, I can be doing more. I wake up at 3:00 in the morning. Oh my God, there's so much more you could be doing. But thank you for coming on here. All right. And
thank you.
Take care. Be well. Thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. Good night.
Good night.